In this series of videos I'm going to take you through the entire route of the Kungsleden, following the map and giving some comments as we go along. The Kungsleden is a 450-kilometre hiking path in northern Sweden, going from Abisko to Hemavan. It's epic and I'd highly recommend it. I started walking it at the end of August and it took me 22 days. I chose to go at the end of the summer because there'd be fewer insects and the trail would hopefully be a bit quieter. I went from the north to the south because I wanted to move south with the change in the season, and I also prefer walking towards the sun. Hopefully the guidebook I had was written in this direction too, so it was easy to follow rather than following it the other way around, but a lot of people also go from the south to the north. It's equally kind of doable. Abisko itself it's quite remote. It takes a while to get there. I flew to Stockholm from England and then got an 18-hour night train to Abisko from Stockholm. You can also fly to Kiruna, which is a kind of the largest town nearby, and then catch a train or bus to Abisko from there. This first section covers Abisko to Saltoluotka. This first section is very popular. There's a lot of mountain huts to stay at, so you don't need to carry a tent. The terrain isn't super challenging and it's like relatively easy to get to compared to some of the other parts of it. So you don't need to be super experienced to do it, and I met quite a few people who this was their first kind of multi-day walk that they were doing. These maps that you can see are the Calazo series of maps, which are great. You can find them pretty much everywhere in Sweden in outdoor shops and even things like supermarkets. They're printed on Tyvek, which is a kind of plastic material, so they're waterproof, and they're printed on both sides. The Kungsleden is highlighted on the series of maps that covers them. You only need 4 of them to do the entire trail from Abisko to Hemavan, and they come in 2 series of scales. There's a 1 to 100,000, which I've got here, and then a 1 to 50,000. This 1 to 100,000 one, the grid squares are 2 kilometers. When I first got this, I thought these were like 1 kilometer grid squares, and I kept on like thinking, oh man, I'm going pretty slowly here. So let's get started. There are 2 train stations at Abisko. There's Abiskojuare and Abisko tourist station. Abiskojuare is here in the kind of main village of Abisko, and Abisko tourist station is here where the fuel station is. I got off the train at Abiskojuare because there's a little supermarket in the village which I wanted to check out. So I had a look around there and got some snacks and things, and then it's about 2 kilometers walk over to the fuel station and the actual start of the Kungsleden. In the fuel station you can camp or stay in like a room or things, and they also have again like a little shop. What you can do there is you can buy a STF membership, which is the organisation who run the mountain huts. They're well worth getting because they cost about 350 krona, but you get discounts for staying out or camping near all the huts, and also on some of the ferry crossings later, so they're well worth getting. At Abisko tourist station there's the start of the Kungsleden, which is marked by this like cute little tunnel type thing. You cross under the road and then you begin the Kungsleden. So it goes sort of up the valley, following the river. The trail is marked by kind of red paint markers on some of the trees, and where there aren't trees there are rocks with the paint mark. In most places it's pretty obvious where you need to go, so it's not particularly difficult to navigate. On this first section, one thing to note is you're in Abisko National Park, which is the only area in the Kungsleden where you can't camp wherever you want. So everywhere else you can camp according to the kind of all man's right thing which they have, but here you can't. There's a little campsite here, somewhere around here, it's got a wind shelter and latrines and things, and then further up you can camp at the Abiskojaure STF cabin or go out of the national park. So if you're doing this, bear that in mind. Yeah, so you head up out of this kind of birch forest and then go along by the side of this river, which becomes the Abiskojuare lake, and then you eventually arrive at Abiskojuare Stagorna, which is the STF cabin. These are located at various points along the trail. You can stay at these like a kind of hostel in like bunk rooms, or you can camp nearby and pay a small fee to use facilities. So I chose to do this here because you get to go into a little kitchen for cooking, and most importantly there's a sauna. There are wood-fired saunas at quite a few of the cabins along the route, and they're pretty amazing. For the ones here, they're kind of right by a lake, so you go into the sauna, and then once you're like warm enough, you just jump into the lake, and then repeat it a couple of times until you're happy. So I camped here and had a nice night, and then next day headed out of Abiskojuare and then out of Abisko National Park. And then, yeah, there's like a sign here just in the middle of the road path which shows the border, but there's nothing really marking it. But after that there are kind of a number of camp spots that you can camp at. There's a bridge here which has some good camp spots next to it, got a river, but you're sort of heading up the kind of main valley like here. What you do is you go up this sort of side valley, and there's a little bit of a ascent, but it's nothing like serious, and then it soon levels out and you're by all these kind of like really nice kind of lakes. This section is quite exposed, so it was, I can imagine if it was raining it would be a bit shit, but it was really sunny, it was beautiful, it was warm, great views. So you head along by these lakes. There is some other trails going off in the other direction, but you go down this valley. Oh, here, this little thing is, there's a ferry that you can take to the next cabin to give you a little bit of a shortcut, which runs, I think maybe in the morning and the afternoon, if you are tired or something. But I didn't take it, I just went along the side of the lake and it was quite nice. And then you arrive at Alesjaure, which is a nice cabin, but I didn't use the facilities. I just camped nearby, bought some chocolate from the shop. There's a kind of suspension bridge which you cross over directly after you get to the cabin. There's loads of spots to camp after that. The next day you keep on heading up the valley here. You start to see a lot more of these kind of wooden boardwalks in this section, which go over some of the rockier and boggier parts of the trail. But you keep on heading up this valley. It's quite a gentle, for most of it, kind of like gentle route until you reach the bit heading up to Chatka. This section here is quite steep, but once you're up that sort of like kilometre or so, it levels out again. There's the Chatka cabin here, which is you can stay at. It doesn't have a sauna, it doesn't have a shop, and not particularly far from the previous one, so I didn't stop here or check it out. This section from the cabin up to the Chatka pass here is quite screwy, it's quite rocky, so even though it isn't particularly far or you're not going uphill a lot, it takes a bit of time because you have to watch where you're going underfoot a bit. But eventually you arrive at Chatka, the actual pass itself, where there's an emergency shelter. So these emergency shelters you'll find all along the trail, and they're for emergencies. I think they're mainly for people who are doing this in the winter, because you can ski it in the winter and need to get out of the cold or things. But they're unlocked and you can go inside them if it's raining or windy outside to have lunch. You can only stay over them overnight if it's an emergency, but they're kind of helpful to have. So it was still a really lovely day. So I had a bit of lunch here, looking over the pass to the south, where you can see this kind of amazing braided river going all the way down the valley. Then going down from here, it's a bit steep, but it soon kind of levels out. When you're at the top of the pass, you think, oh man, this is a beautiful, lovely, kind of like flat valley. I'm just going to race down here, but actually, like the previous bit, there's a lot of scree, a lot of rocks, so the going isn't as easy as you might think it is. And with all these sections, it's really helpful to have trekking poles with you, and also to be kind of have a good sense of balance. Luckily, you can do sort of like various exercises to train your sense of balance, which I'd recommend doing before you head out on something like this. You head down the valley all the way down to Saltoluotka here. I camped here as well and paid the fee because they've got a really nice sauna. There isn't a lake, but there's a river coming down from the mountains, which you can sort of splash yourself in, and it's pretty nice. It was quite cold overnight, camping here, relatively high up. There was frost on the ground when I woke up in the morning, but it was actually going to be another really nice sunny day again. So you keep on heading down this valley. Again, it's quite rocky, quite scree, so even though it's flat, the going isn't super fast. There's another little emergency cabin here. What you can do here is, so you're near Kebnekaise, which is Sweden's highest mountain, and there's a little route off which some people take. So there's an eastern route which you get from the mountain station, sort of like over that way. But if you're more confident, what you can do is you can come off the path here, go up this little section here, and then camp somewhere near here, drop your stuff, and then do an ascent of the mountain, and then come back down without having to carry all your stuff. I didn't do this myself, but if you want to go up Kebnekaise and you don't want to go all the way to the fuel station, you can do it. Anyway, the route, the Kungsleden heads further down. There's a little Sami village here, and then you arrive at Singi here. This is where there's the path, sort of not the Kungsleden splits, but there's a route which a lot of people do going from Abisko to Saltoluotka via the Kebnekaise fuel station, so which is probably the most popular bit of it. So a lot of people turn off here and then they head up the valley to Kebnekaise fuel station. This is actually a kind of like fully mountain station, instead of like the Abisko one, not just a hut. So it's got apparently it's got a restaurant and electricity and things, and then you can pay for a guide to go up to Kebnekaise, and then you can continue onwards to Saltoluotka here, where there's, I think, buses and things back to the kind of wider world. Where are we? Okay, so the section beyond Singi starts to quiet down a little bit because there just aren't as many people doing it. So you keep on heading down there, following the river down the valley, all the way down here. You start to head back into some forest. I see some trees again, which is nice. And then you arrive at Kaitumjaure, which is the hut here. I didn't stay at the hut. I just bought some chocolate and then camped nearby, sort of like on the hill, and there are nice views of the lake down the valley. So on this day, which is my kind of fifth day, the weather definitely changed. It became cloudy and sort of drizzly later on. What you do is you the route, the path follows this river a little bit and then heads over the kind of fell between the two valleys to Abiskojuare. I mean, there's a bit of an ascent up here, and then it's quite steep heading down to Abiskojuare, but sort of nothing too terrible if you take it nice and gently and don't rush yourself. This is the first of the boat crossings which are on the Kungsleden. I think there are about 6 or 7 of them. There are two options for most crossings. You can either get a ferry, which the STF run, or there are rowboats, and you can row across. The thing about the rowboats is there are usually 3 or 4 rowboats for each crossing, and there always needs to be one rowboat on each side so that people can row across. So if you get to the side of a crossing and there's one rowboat, what you need to do is you need to row that boat across, get another boat, attach it to your boat, and then row back, leave the boat there, and then row back again to finish. So if you arrive at a crossing and there aren't enough rowboats, you're tripling the amount of distance you row. I mean, on the shortest section it's like 400 meters. This is a kilometer, and then later on there's a crossing which is about 2.5 kilometers. So on those sections it adds up, and it's worth making sure you don't have to row across by waiting for someone to row from the other side. If the weather's not good and it's windy, don't row across, because the rowboats aren't great. They're heavy and they're slow and difficult to row in the wind. Here we saw some people row across. They took the only boat on the Abiskojuare side, rowed across, and then the wind picked up and they weren't able to row back. So the ferryman, when he went across, had to pick up a boat and take it back. The crossing here, the STF ferry crossing, is at I think 9 and 5, and I got here at about midday. However, the Stuvgard, or the warden of the hut, said that he would, as soon as there were enough people, he would put on a ferry crossing. So that's eventually kind of 4 people arrived wanted to cross over, so you were able to get the ferry over. And then on the other side you go through a kind of fairly dense birch forest and then head up onto this kind of fell in between the valleys. Some people who I'd crossed with went and camped sort of directly after the crossing, but I decided to cross over here to the next valley, and I'm glad I did, because in the Abiskojuare valley it was raining and there was low cloud, but as soon as I crossed over this section and got sort of midway through, like down here, the cloud has sort of lifted and there were amazing views and it wasn't raining anymore, so it was great. There's a little like detour here down to like a bridge, so you head up, there's a sign which says like bridge, and you go down and then you head back up again. I did that. I went down to the bridge to cross this like river and then back up again. Apparently you don't need to do that, you can just go and cross it. There's no bridge where the path is, you have to kind of step over, but apparently there are enough stones and things that make it's not like a super difficult thing to do. Anyway, you head over here. It's kind of flat, and you get these amazing views out over south, and you can see Sarek to the southwest, which is really nice. So you keep on going south to Vakkotavare. This section here was really, really nice. There was loads of kind of like big bouldery, rocky, scree things. Yeah, it just felt like walking through the most amazing Japanese rock garden thing, but it was like everywhere, which was really nice. And there are some camp spots here some places, and then you descend. The descent down to Vakkotavare is quite steep, so watch out for that. I wouldn't like to do it the other way around. And eventually you arrive at Vakkotavare, which is a STF hut. Unless you need to, it's not worth staying at because it doesn't have a sauna, it doesn't have a shop. It's literally just somewhere to stay at while you wait for the bus the next day. So I camped nearby. There's a river coming down, and I camped by it, and it was really loud, but I had earplugs, so it wasn't a deal. And then the next day, so there were 2 buses a day heading south from Vakkotavare. I think there's one at about 11 and one about 2. You can technically walk this next section, but it's 30 kilometres along a road, and no, I don't think anybody really wants to do that. So you get on the bus and head down the valley. You stop at this little cafe, restaurant, visitor centre here for 20 minutes, and you can have some coffee and a pastry, and then you keep on heading down the valley, and then you get dropped off at Kebnats here, which is where the ferry crossing to Saltoluotka is, and it's timed so that when the bus arrives, you're pretty much getting a ferry across, and the total time to get from Vakkotavare to Kebnats is, I don't know, it's like an hour or so, maybe less actually. And then you arrive at Saltoluotka, which is one of these fuel stations. So it has lots of facilities, which the mountain huts don't. It has a restaurant, a bar, it's got electricity. We arrived sort of midday, so I decided to camp here and use it as a bit of a rest day. Camping spots are kind of fine, they're not super level, heading down to the lake. I gave my phone to reception to charge because I lost my English to Euro plug converter on the train to Abisko. I left it on a train when I changed trains, but I was able to charge at the fuel stations and it was all fine. I washed my clothes in a bucket, dried them in the drying room, did some reading, had a shower, used a sauna. They're not wood fired, but they're electric, but they've got a really good view out over the lake. These ones are segregated by sex, so there's a male one and there's a female one. They also do a buffet breakfast, which you can book, and it's pretty good. I had it. I'd say it's worth getting. They also do a dinner as well. I didn't get that, but I heard from people who had it that it was good. Yeah, this is the end of the first section. So from here you can either continue south on the Kungsleden, or instead of getting off at Kebnats and going to Saltoluotka, you can just stay on the bus and head back to the wider world. I think you go to Jokkmokk or something. The next video will cover the section from Saltoluotka to Kvikjok. Thanks for watching.